Hello everyone. Shalom. Peace to you. This is Michael Conley and welcome once again to Hitting the Mark. I'm going to be reading some scriptures from a Hebrew English translation. And today we are going to start our journey to understand about our present world circumstances and where they originated from. So I'll be using the Hebrew term Hashem, and it means the name, because sometimes when we just say God, we don't know really what we're speaking about. So the name, or the Hebrew word Hashem, gives significance to the fact that it's the Almighty Creator God, the one true God. In my last video, I mentioned to you that we would be taking a look and going back in time to explain why things are the way they are today. Where did the foundation for the present world circumstances originate? And as you probably already know, to understand our present, we must look to the past. If we go all the way back to the time of creation, and we begin to study the Torah, or the first 5 books of the Old Testament, we will truly understand why the world is in such tremendous upheaval. So let's begin, and it's going to take maybe 2 to 3 segments to cover this, but I think it will be well worth your time because we really need to understand this. There were 10 generations from Adam to the flood, and from the flood to Abram was another 10. When you look at this, you'll discover that the Torah does not cover up human frailty, but it sheds its light on leaders as well as everyone else. And it points to the absolute fact that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So we're going to begin approximately 20 generations from the time of creation. The year is 1996 from the time of creation, and it's 340 years after the flood. And we have these conditions. We have one nation. We have one language. And we have a central location. Now, this language was the language that initiated creation. It was the language that Hashem spoke the world into existence with, the Hebrew language. In Genesis 11:1, it says this: "The whole earth was of one language and a common purpose. And it came to pass, when they migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar, and they settled there." Now, Shinar, of course, is where the Tower of Babylon originated in the present-day nation of Iraq. This continues in the narration of the building of the Tower of Babylon, the dispersion all over the earth from one nation to 70 nations with 70 different languages. The chapter continues with the breakdown of the descendants of Noah and his 3 sons, and it ends with Abram's family. There are an enormous amount of detail that we could cover concerning the Tower of Babylon, but I want to stick to my main point, and maybe we can look at that at another time. In Genesis 12, we're now actually on the third try at a new creation. Hashem said to Abram, "Go for yourself from your land, from your relatives, from your father's house, to a land I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed of themselves by you." So we see that this Abram was a man of godly character, a man chosen out of virtually hundreds, perhaps thousands of people. And his character was so outstanding that Hashem decided that Abram is going to be the guy that I'm going to give the responsibility for, to pick up the pieces where Adam and Noah both dropped. So Abram, in Genesis 12, verse 4, Abram went as Hashem had spoken to him. Now this is his first trial. Abram now is 75, and Sarai, his wife, is 65. And he leaves immediately. Obedience, the picture of obedience. Abram is given a command, and he moves immediately. It will be another 24 years after this command that Abram and Sarai will have a name change. Abram will move from Abram, father of a nation, to Abraham, father of many nations. And Sarai will move to Sarah and become the matriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. Abraham now is heading for a land he has never seen, doesn't know where it is, and Hashem is going to show him where it is. In Genesis 12:7, Hashem appears again to Abram, and says, "To your offspring I will give this land." Well, right after this, there's a tremendous famine. And Abraham has to go down to Egypt. And as you all know, when he gets there, at 65, Sarah's beauty is renowned. And there's a problem between the Pharaoh and an interaction with Sarah. It ends up with a plague. And Pharaoh invites Abraham to leave the nation and gives him gifts and everything. And in 13:1, Genesis 13:1, we read, Abram went up from Egypt. But you see, this is not just about a direction, a physical direction. This is about a spiritual direction, because Abram, by leaving Egypt, was leaving a place of spiritual pollution. And he was moving back to a higher, former position. Adam lost his position over the fruit of the tree. Noah, in a sense, failed over the fruit of the vine. They did not regain their former eminence. And I'm wondering how many people today, if we could be honest, could look back and know that, you know what, it wasn't that long ago where I really knew where I stood with Hashem. I was serving Him. I had a regular prayer life. There was power in my life. I loved Hashem. And I loved the Lord. But you know, time has gone by now, and I have kind of been in spiritual pollution. If that's you today, my friend, you need to make a decision to move back to your former higher eminence. And I hope that you would consider to do that. All right, let's move on. We now in Genesis 13, as we continue, see that Abraham and Lot had to part ways. They had a little problem because they were both getting really big, and their herdsmen were arguing, and it led to all sorts of problems. And in Genesis 13, verse 14, Hashem said to Abram, after Lot had separated, "Raise now your eyes and look out from where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land that you see, to you I will give it, and to your descendants," and this is the key, "forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth," so that if one can count the dust of the earth, then your offspring too can be counted. And in verse 17, he's told to arise and walk the land through its length and breadth, for to you I will give it. So here we have Abraham in another command being told to walk the land. And then we go to Genesis 14, where we have the war of the kings. Lot is captured and Abraham saves him. But you see, Abram becomes a target because he was turning people away from idolatry. And he was pointing them to one God, one Hashem. Mohammed did not originate monotheism. This originated centuries before his arrival with Abram. In verse 13, Abram is called by the Hebrew name an Ivri, I-V-R-I. And that has to do with crossing over, because he crossed over the Euphrates into Canaan. And it was only Abram's descendants that spoke Hebrew, which is the language of creation. And then, once he is on the other side, he meets Melchizedek, the king of Salem. So we will continue on in our next series, and I hope that you tune in, because we are heading for a man named Ishmael. And when we discover who this man was, we will understand our present conditions. May Hashem richly bless you and yours, and thank you very much for listening to Hitting the Mark.